The EU and the UK have postponed their decision on the Brexit trade pact again. But there's a novelty. There is no new deadline this time. With the end of the year, no deal scenarios such as a dispute over fishing rights are getting closer and closer. Despite the exhaustion after a year of negotiations and the many deadlines that were not observed, she and British Prime Minister Boris Johnson had agreed that it was responsible to make one more attempt. This is how the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen described the result of her recent telephone conversation with Boris Johnson on Sunday afternoon. The useful and constructive phone call had shown that negotiations on a trade agreement between the EU and the UK were worthwhile. In the past 48 hours, Michel Barnier for the EU and David Frost for Great Britain had negotiated day and night in Brussels in order to get an approximation of the last 3 remaining points of dispute. In her brief statement, Ursula von der Leyen did not state whether there had been substantial progress in the areas of level playing field, dispute settlement and fishing. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said in a television interview that the two sides are still very far apart. "We'll keep trying, that's what the country expects of us," said Johnson. Britain will not leave the negotiating table. There are still 18 days for further negotiations. At the end of December 31st, Great Britain and Northern Ireland would withdraw from the internal market and all previous transnational rules without an agreement. Since both the British Parliament and the European Parliament still have to approve an agreement, the 26th or 28th of December is seen as the final deadline due to the breaks in session. The EU actually wanted to avoid the hard Brexit because of the unforeseeable economic consequences of the already prevailing corona recession. In the last few days, both the EU Commission and the British government had described the hard exit without an agreement as the more likely option. The President of the European Council, Charles Michel, said in Brussels that everything had to be done to bring about another deal. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson had also announced that he would leave no stone unturned to make an agreement possible. That doesn't sound like no deal is very good for us as well, just to mention that one. However, the EU and the British government each demanded that the other side give up their position. By the way, I recently talked about the never-ending story. Some brought up the lyrics from the title song, Never Ending Story by Limahl, by the way. A British singer, if I'm not wrong. And at the moment I have to say it feels more like Groundhog Day. But still, the EU insists on a level playing field and access to UK fishing grounds. Prime Minister Boris Johnson insists on the sovereignty of the coastal state of Great Britain, which must regain control over its fish. At the summit on Thursday, the 27 member states of the EU once again stood behind the negotiating mandate for Chief Negotiator Michel Barnier. So if, like I can see it in the comments all the time, somebody hoped for the EU to split up, that didn't happen and that won't happen. Telephone calls to the German Chancellor and the French President requested by Prime Minister Johnson were both refused. Instead, Johnson was personally received by EU Commission President von der Leyen on Wednesday. She remains his contact in person, and that's completely right, because the EU 27 gave the mandate for all trade negotiations to the EU Commission. They tell the Commission what they expect and what they're allowed to do and what not, but the negotiations are handled by the Commission on the authorization of the EU 27. So there is no need for courts to single out some capitals. In the British press, Chancellor Merkel is again accused of being Mrs. No and preventing a deal with the British. It's fun because in my comments I always read that Merkel will be the one pressing through a deal no matter the cost. Merkel wants Britain to crawl over broken glass, a government source is said to have told various newspapers. The Mail on Sunday accuses the Chancellor of ruling in an authoritarian manner and assessed the British completely wrongly because they believed they would give in. Angela Merkel commented on the pandemic for the Brexit marathon on Sunday after a video conference with the federal states. We'll be in complete lockdown from Wednesday on, by the way. Everything must be tried to find a solution, said Merkel. Any opportunity to get a result is very welcome. The fact that the EU Commission and the Prime Minister's office in London had published identical statements was rated positively. The British Cabinet decided after a special meeting in the early afternoon to continue negotiations with the EU. The Irish Foreign Minister Simon Coveney wrote on the short message service Twitter that it was a good signal that there was a joint statement. Finding a deal is certainly very difficult, but not impossible. We need to keep our cool and give the negotiators time to work their way up, Coveney wrote. The EU Commission presented 4 emergency agreements which should take effect in the event of a no deal in order to maintain ship, rail and air traffic for the next 6 months. In addition, both sides should allow each other access to their sea areas. The British Prime Minister said in London that his country was prepared for an exit without a treaty and the rules of the World Trade Organization. We are ready, said Johnson, but that, in my point of view, contradicts that he says we don't want to leave any stone unturned to find a deal. According to British media reports, British warships are to be put on standby to prevent European fishing boats from entering British waters from January 1st. And because some brought that up in the comments, it's not unusual to have the Coast Guard patrol your waters in case of illegal fishing. But bringing in the Navy is a little bit different. The trucks are already backing up in the port cities of Calais and Dover. The companies are still trying to exchange as many goods as possible before duties, taxes and a lot of administrative work are due in January. The transition phase will end on December 31st, during which the Kingdom is still part of the European internal market and the customs union. Theoretically, there is time until then, although a treaty would still have to be ratified, but the partners could also agree to apply the agreement initially on a provisional basis. Will the chief negotiators Michel Barnier for the EU and the British counterpart David Frost be able to come to an agreement shortly before the end, or would they actually risk a no deal and let the talks break down? First of all, I can't imagine the EU to walk away from the table before New Year's Eve midnight, so nobody can blame the EU for walking away, because that's many Brexiteers, even on my channel, are trying to do this. I can see it in the comments, and that's the reason why they will not walk away. But with all the Brexiteers telling me how great WTO is, they still haven't answered one question in the comments whenever I ask them. Why has David Frost not walked away from the table then? Perhaps one of you will finally answer that one. Johnson warned a few days ago that there is now a high probability that we will get a solution similar to Australia's relationship with the EU. And, by the way, still, saying Australia-style deal is still a lie. Australia does have more treaties with the EU than the UK would have in case of a no-deal Brexit. So, as I said it a week ago, it will more be an Afghanistan-style deal Brexit, but you will never have an Australia-style deal. That's just a euphemism for no deal because he's too scared to say that out loud. Because this is the description of a hard Brexit nicely colored by the Brexit supporters, because Australia and the EU are not linked by a comprehensive trade agreement, but they do have a lot of other agreements, and at the moment they are negotiating a free trade agreement and already had 9 very successful rounds of negotiations. Greetings to my viewers from Australia, by the way. I really appreciate all your comments as well, and I'm quite surprised sometimes at what time of the day, when I'm thinking about what time must it be in Australia, that you are awake already and watching my videos. So thank you for that one. In Great Britain, the rules of the World Trade Organization would apply from 2021, including customs duties and controls. Observers and business representatives have been emphasizing for weeks that the Kingdom is not sufficiently prepared for the no-deal scenario. It would not only threaten miles of traffic jams at the Dover bottleneck. According to the Sunday Times, the government is currently advising supermarkets to stock up on food, as otherwise bottlenecks could arise in some areas. In addition, $1 billion rescue package is being planned for sectors particularly affected, such as those of car manufacturers and farmers. In fact, the nervousness is increasing on the island. The mood is increasingly heated. And I can agree to that because the insulting comments of Brexiteers in my comment section under the videos are rising a lot at the moment. The announcement that 4 Royal Navy ships would be getting ready to defend British waters against EU fishing trawlers in the worst case scenario didn't help either, as I said before. Is there a new scallop war looming in the English Channel? That's what some Germans call it. You call it always cod war, as it did in the recent past when British and French fishermen repeatedly fought over the catch on the high seas. I know cod war was with Iceland, but those are two different examples. They always give the one on our side, they always talk about the scallop war. On your side, they always talk about the cod war. The Scottish Regional Government's Justice Minister, Humza Yousaf, then criticized the gunboat diplomacy, which is undesirable in the waters in the northern part of the country. And someone rightly wrote in the comment section under one of my last videos, I was just checking if we are still in the 21st century or are we back in the 19th century. In addition to the fishing rights, the dispute between the negotiating partners resolves about all on the question of supervision of the agreement, although that's probably the easiest part to find a compromise for, because the EU made offers there months ago, as well as the so-called level playing field, the guarantee of fair competition. While the government in London insists on the sovereignty of the country and praises the future as an independent state, the EU only wants to grant the British duty-free access to the European market if they follow the Brussels model in terms of state aid and standards and continue to recognize certain rules. And there was some very funny stuff today, because Dominic Raab was interviewed this morning on Sophie Rich, and he admitted that the other FTAs, the rollover ones you have, and the Japan one, all include some form of level playing field. At least there is one real deadline, and that's December 31st. Even with all the tricks, something has to happen by then. And until then, I'll probably more often think about Groundhog Day. And if you want to stay informed, please subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to my other two channels. They're growing really well compared how new they are and compared to new YouTube and what you have to expect on YouTube. So thank all the subscribers there for that one. I'll see you in my next video. Viel Spaß!